Hello, and welcome to Starts at 8. I'm super excited to be sharing about College Prep Science's virtual labs today. My daughter, who just finished her freshman year of high school, and myself have had the opportunity to experience multiple classes from College Prep Science. You can check them out over at startsat8.com, and I will also link to them in the description below. College Prep Science, if you haven't heard of them before, offers virtual science labs for kids in grades 6 to 12. They are realistic, they are interactive, they are all online, and students can perform them from the comfort of their own home. When it comes to the College Prep Science virtual labs, there are two options that you have to choose from. First is a 2-week online lab intensive where students get 30-minute daily classes. That's each weekday for 2 weeks with Greg Landry for instruction and questions. Then they go ahead and conduct the lab experiment and complete their lab report to turn in. The second option is a self-paced 1-year family subscription where you have access to all the virtual labs for a full year. This is the same lab experience as the 2-week intensive, the difference being that instead of having live classes, you have a short video done by Greg Landry that the student would complete before the lab that gives a video explanation of the lab that they'll be doing. And then they would complete the lab and do the lab report on their own. Today I'm going to share with you about our experience with the self-paced biology, anatomy, and physiology interactive virtual science lab and the reasons why we love it. The first reason that I love it is because all of the college prep virtual labs are geared towards the upper level sciences. So that's grades 6 to 12. And in my opinion, this fills a big gap when it comes to homeschool courses. You can often find a lot of resources for the elementary years, but as you get up into middle and high school, it's harder to find good resources. And these virtual labs fulfill that need for some quality science in the middle and high school years. And early on, I knew that one of the things I didn't want to do in my homeschool was teach high school chemistry. I didn't feel equipped to handle the chemicals that would be required to complete the labs in our home. So using the College Prep Interactive virtual lab solves that problem for me. It means I don't have to have, those chemicals in my house. I don't have to worry about trying to teach it. And I know that my kids will be getting a quality science education through the virtual labs at College Prep Science. The second reason that we love College Prep Science virtual labs is that there are no gross smells. Now, this is more a reason for my children than for myself because I personally loved biology and all that came with it. Although looking back now, I realize that all of those smells and messes were contained in the high school biology lab and not so much at home. So as a mom, I also appreciate not having those smells of those preserved animals and the chemicals that you're creating in chemistry. So the virtual lab environment offers a smell-free environment. Along with this, there's no contact with the slimy creatures or chemicals in your house. I had one child who tried to use a nose plug and gloves to avoid all of the smells and textures and things. So the virtual lab would have been a really bonus in her life. So instead, the students use a mouse to control a scalpel while dissecting a frog in the biology lab. You would use your mouse to move a beaker, mix chemicals. The virtual lab means that you don't have to have those smells in your home, which, hey, come on, moms, is a real bonus. So using your mouse to control the virtual lab kind of leads me to the next reason why I really like the College Prep Science virtual labs. There are no expensive supplies. Most of us have a computer in our home at this point, so we already have the main supply that you would need for the College Prep virtual lab. So there's no extensive list of supplies to purchase. There's no expensive lab equipment needed. I have personally spent $200 to $300 in a year on science supply kits. So this virtual lab is instruction and supply kit in one. So for each lab, your student begins by watching a brief video where Greg Landry, the owner and also the instructor at College Prep Science, goes over the lab that your student will be doing. Then they head into the virtual lab and complete the lab where there are step-by-step instructions within the virtual program for completing the lab. And when they're finished, they can complete their custom lab report based on the scientific method that Greg Landry goes over in the very first lesson of the virtual lab course. Speaking of the scientific method brings me to reason number 4, the strong use of the scientific method within the College Prep Virtual Lab system. In the very first lesson of the College Prep Science Virtual Labs, Greg Landry takes the time to go over the scientific method step by step. He walks through completing a 5-section lab report based on the scientific method that includes the introduction, materials, method, results, and discussion. He then goes through a sample lab report step by step to show students how to complete a full, thorough lab report. I love that it's not just the action of doing the lab, but the use of the scientific method to create a solid lab report. This is a skill that will prove to be very important to our students as they go on to college. I can't stress enough how accessible the College Prep Science virtual labs make upper-level science for homeschoolers. I highly recommend you check out my full review, which I'll link to in the description. There you will find a link to get a free test drive of the virtual interactive science lab from College Prep Science.